Chapter 2. The Role of the Imagination. Before beginning to explain the practical application of autosuggestion and the extremely simple method by which it is possible for everyone to gain complete mastery over his or her physical organism, I must speak of the all-important role of the imagination. Dominance of the imagination over the will. Contrary to the generally accepted theory, the will is not the invincible force it is claimed to be. In fact, whenever imagination and will come into conflict, it is always imagination that triumphs. Try to do something while you are repeating, "I cannot do it," and you will see this truth confirmed. The mere idea of inability to accomplish a thing paralyzes the willpower. Self-mastery is attained when the imagination has been directed and trained to conform with our desires. For although in one sense the imagination is inclined in the subconscious, yet it dominates the latter, and therefore, if we know how to guide it, our subconscious self will take charge of our material being and do its work just as we wish it to be done. Or in other words, exactly in conformity with our conscious suggestions. I cannot too strongly insist that in the practice of autosuggestion the exercise of will must be strictly avoided, except in the initial phase of directing or guiding the imagination on the desired lines. This is absolutely the only manifestation of will necessary or even desirable. Any other voluntary effort is positively harmful in connection with autosuggestion, and will almost certainly have an effect contrary to the one desired. Analyze the so-called strong-willed character of history, Caesar, Napoleon, etc. You will find that they were all men of big imagination. Certain ideas were implanted in their minds, and their tenacious suggestions impelled them into action. This, however, is a digression. Law of converted effort. What I want to drive home for the moment is a law of what my friend Charles Baudin calls converted effort. Suppose a man suffering from insomnia decides to try the effect of autosuggestion. Unless previously warned, he will repeat to himself phrases like, "I want to sleep," "I will sleep," "I am going to sleep," and all the time he will be making desperate efforts to coax sleep. This is fatal. The very fact of exerting effort has converted the latter into a force acting in a sense contrary to the original suggestion, with the result that poor man tosses and turns in his bed in sleepless wretchedness. The imagination should be unhindered. Let the imagination do its work alone, unhindered. Be quite passive. Through mysterious, still unexplained processes, our subconscious self accomplishes marvelous things. Think of the very commonest movements of the human body and ask yourself how they are operated. What is set in motion, the complicated mechanism, when you stretch your arm to reach a glass on the table, or when you take a cigarette from your case? No one knows. But if we cannot explain the phenomena, we do know that, in actual fact, it is an order resulting from a mere suggestion, which is transmitted through the nervous system and translated into action at a speed infinitely greater than that of lightning. Examples of the power of imagination. Thousands of examples of the power of imagination may be found in everyday life. There is the one given by Pascal, and so often cited, which I cannot help repeating here, because it is such a perfect illustration. No one would have the slightest difficulty in walking along a foot-wide plank placed on the ground. But put the same plank across a street at the height of one of your American skyscrapers, Blondel himself would not have dared trust himself on it. Anyone who did would assuredly fall to death. No clearer proof of the power of an idea should be desired. There is, however, another striking example in the impunity with which sleepwalkers perform the most perilous feats, such as wandering about on a roof, hugging the extreme edge of it, to the terror of their friends who may happen to perceive them. If awakened suddenly, a sleepwalker in such a position would inevitably fall. Here is another. Dr. Pinot, in his book, De la philosophie de l'argent, relates that in the middle of a large dinner party, the cook rushed in to announce that she had made a mistake and mixed arsenic with the food instead of some other ingredient. Several persons were immediately seized with pains and sickness, which only ceased when the cook came back to say that it was a false alarm, that there had been no dreadful error. I have said enough to prove the irresistible influence of the idea or imagination over the physical organism. It determines pain, movement, emotion, sensation. Its effect is both moral and physical. We may logically conclude, therefore, that human ailments, which are nothing but disturbances of the natural equilibrium of the elements of our being, can be cured by the right kind of idea or suggestion. The moral factor in all disease, to begin with, there is in every disease of no matter what nature a moral factor which no doctor can afford to ignore. Some medical authorities in France estimate this moral factor as representing from 40 to 50% of the chances of recovery. A patient who says to himself, "I am getting better," vastly increases his vital forces and hastens his recovery. By gently putting our imagination on the right track, we are sure of aiding nature, who manifests herself through the medium of our subconscious self. The instinct of self-preservation is but a manifestation of nature. At the first sound of alarm, she hastens to the rescue. A cut finger or other wound is followed by a rush of red globules to the injured part. That wonderful subconscious self of ours does it, for it knows and commands every movement of our being, every contraction of our heart, the minutest vibration of every cell in our organism. It is a sublime instrument, which we are so apt to misuse by allowing bad, disturbing, or discouraging thoughts to interfere with its work, instead of allowing it to function smoothly and harmoniously. Miracles are attributed to the fakirs of India. Legend or fact I know not, but it is certainly true that they do some most wonderful things simply because they are taught from their infancy to know and make use of the limitless unseen and yet unexplained forces latent in us, which can be awakened by thought. The limitations of autosuggestion unknown. I am often asked, what are the limitations of autosuggestion? I reply, I really do not know. The cures I have seen have appeared sometimes so amazing, so incredible, that I decline theoretically to place any limit at all. Although, of course, I must insist, nothing must be expected from autosuggestion which is obviously outside the domain of material possibility. For instance, it would be absurd to ask for the growth of a new arm or a new leg, despite the fact that the lobster seems to know how to grow a new claw when it is necessary. There are persons who, by long practice and concentration, have acquired an amazing power over their bodily functions. Cases are known to the medical faculty of Paris of men able to increase at will the speed of their heartbeats from 90 to 120, or diminish it to such a degree that the heart seems almost to stop. In another chapter I shall talk of the diseases actually cured by autosuggestion, and in general of its sphere of curative possibilities. Let it be thoroughly realized that thought or suggestion is able to mold the human body as a sculptor chisels his clay. Thought is an act. It is more than Baran believed when he wrote, "Suggestion is an idea which can be transformed into action." Certain it is that cases declared to be incurable have been cured by autosuggestion, and not only diseases of a functional nature, sores and wounds of long standing which have resisted all other treatments have been healed rapidly by suggestion. Was it not Dr. Carnot who said, "The wounds of victorious soldiers heal more rapidly than those of the vanquished"? I can declare without hesitation that whatever the illness, the practice of rational autosuggestion will always effect an appreciable improvement in the patient's condition, even if the disease itself be incurable. End of chapter.